What makes a man? Is it the power in his hands? Is it his quest for glory? Give it all you got to fight to the top, so we can know your story. Now you're a man, a man, man, man. Now you're a man, a mounty, mounty, man, a man, man, man. You are now a man.
Yo, yo, yo,
man.
yo. This is the KYGY2 podcast. The podcast all about 2000s nostalgia and realistically whatever the fuck I feel like talking about. My name is Jesse Dram. I am a podcaster. I am a comedian. I am a father-to-be and a husband as well. I am also slowly renovating this basement, and I guess I'm a handyman too. As a handyman, you know what that means? Fucking mask. I'm masked as fuck. Now, I'm not talking about in the luchador mascara way, mask versus hair match. No, I'm becoming a more masculine male, which is what we're going to talk about today. Yeah, this is an interesting idea for an episode. I was just thinking, I enjoy, because I like talking big concepts, the concepts that really went through our nostalgia. So today we're going to discuss masculinity at the turn of the century, the different ways it went all over the place. My guest is Sidney Gantt. You're going to hear him later in the episode. You can hear him on Two Jacked Bros. He does comedy all over the city. Is a very, very manly man. Yeah, I wanted to do the whole episode with him, but Sidney drops some knowledge on you. Sidney will drop some knowledge on you. And that knowledge, which I very much wanted to hear, didn't really work in with the format of the episode. So I figured, you know what? I'm going to pivot, and I'm just going to talk to this guy, and I'm going to record this first bit, and we're going to get all into the masculinity. But before we do, this Saturday, I got to show y'all a little out of the way from me, East Stroudsburg, PA. Yeah, so if you're up in the Poconos, that will be Saturday, April 16th. East Stroudsburg is the eastern version of Stroudsburg. I'm looking for the address. Well known, based on a mistranslation from the Bible of Strandsburg, where the women would buy their wigs. 213 Skyline Drive at East Stroudsburg, PA. I think it might be some kind of comedy club. Joe Murdoch, what the fuck did you set up here? Yeah, comedian Joe Murdoch, 2021's Philly's Funniest. At Scotty's Comedy Lounge. So come out and see me, Joe Murdoch, Steve Bickle. April 30th, you can see me in Bordentown, New Jersey at the Hope Hose Firehouse fundraiser thing. And I'll also be at Laughs for Recovery in Falsington, Falsington, Pennsylvania. So go check all those things out. Man, comedy just sucks right now. I'm gonna lay it on you guys. I'm having to pull back a little because we're getting ready for the baby. And you know what? This happens. Even something I've been doing forever, I'll just have ebbs and flows where suddenly, shit's not working as well as it did. And it sucks. And it's tricky because there are other people moving ahead of you all the time, it feels. But as Sidney will discuss on this, that's not a good way to look at it. Again, Sidney gave me a lot to chew on. And I'm going to consider that as a performer. I'm going to try adding some of those principles he discussed. But we'll get to that. Oh, by the way, be sure to tune in a few weeks, because let's just say we got a pretty big guest. We got a pretty, I'll go out on a limb. I'll say our biggest guest yet. Surely somebody who stood out much in my childhood as far as growing up, my teen years. He was in a lot of entertainment that I really, really liked. Can't say who just yet. Don't want to look a gift horse in the mouth. Don't want to count my chickens before they're... By the way, go check out the Weird Al song, Dare to Be Stupid. It randomly showed up on a playlist the other day, and I've been listening to it on repeat. But Dare to Be Stupid offers a bunch of horrible, advice in the lyrics, such as count your chickens before they're hatched, etc. But I don't want to ruin that. So let's just say I want you guys to send in your messages And your questions, if you want this asked, you can send them to @JesseDram, where I am at on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all that shit. So send them on there, or at jessedram@gmail.com. If you have any questions regarding the movies Orgasmo, Cannibal the Musical, Basketball, or this obscure little show from the 90s you might have heard of called South Park. You got any questions about that for our guest who would be in a position to know? I farted. Send me a line and we'll ask. So, let's get down to masculinity. Masculinity. It is not femininity. Gonna lift weights and drink some beers. We're not gonna stick earrings in our ears because that's not masculine. Or is it? All right, we're gonna start with one of the big notions. Where are you in the Greek letter bro pantheon? Are you an alpha, a beta, a gamma, an omega, a delta, or a sigma? Yes, there's more than just alphas and betas, apparently. By the way, caveat here, we're discussing all of this with the notion that it's horseshit. I think, what was the argument? Yeah, I think something came out where people... So the whole origins of alpha and betas supposedly comes from a study on wolves, like 10, 20, 30 years ago, on the alpha wolf is, eats first and is dominant over the beta wolves. And it's since been brought out that was like an older wolf with like much younger ones. Like he was dominating them because of like size and age, and it's not really sorted out like that. But hey, human society has come a long way since then, and most of human society is based on horseshit somebody told us once. By the way, I haven't talked about this yet. Go listen to the Conspiracy Land podcast. It's 6 episodes. They're all about a half hour. Season 2 on Seth Rich, the Democratic National Convention worker who was murdered in Washington, D.C., and find out how fucking conspiracy theories get started, because, man, this was infuriating. Basically, one dickhead fucking starts lying, and then other people take those lies and keep running with them. So, basically, I say something dumb. I say KYG Y2 gay. What? That's the next one. Guys, I'm going to find myself, and it's going to be Y2 gay. KYG Y2K is produced by the Israeli government. And then somebody else will go, oh, well, actually, they get their funding from the Israeli government. And then it goes further, still on and on and on. Everything is debunked, but everybody remembers step 1, the Israeli government, and just goes like, well, that part's true, even though it's all debunked. And every time it gets picked up by some other idiot with an agenda, the agenda was to make Donald Trump's election seem legitimate. Every time that happens, it fucking goes further. It's really disgusting and made me lose all hope for humanity. So go check out Conspiracy Land podcast. Anyway, about more bullshit society has been built upon. Alphas, confident leaders, macho, aggressive, chicks like assholes, the extrovert. Think the frat boy. We all know the alpha. I've heard, I forget which comedian was talking about it recently. The alpha not only gets all the women, but like has to scare away, like, the fuck you guys doing at this party? Who invited you here? Are you Phi Kappa Phi? Well, then get the fuck out, bro. Like those guys, just aggressive for no reason. Usually this burns off. The ones who don't get, the ones who don't end up fucking smashing their sports car into a fucking guardrail at 90 miles an hour, and they don't live that long. So we got that. Then we have the betas, the unconfident followers, shy, non-aggressive, the nice guy, the introvert. These are the dudes. Or they're just pussies. They're there to be bullied and manhandled, and like the Bible says. Alphas are Adam, and betas are just the animals. And like, all these are here to be dominated and wedgied, dear Adam, I say. You shall name them all. That is a pig. That is an ostrich. That one is a dork. We shall feed upon him in times of merriment. So again, alphas and betas, these are the original two, the yin and yang of the dings and the dongs. If you're some celebrities who are alphas. We got Joe Rogan, Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt's an alpha. Johnny Depp. I'm just mentioning... Vin Diesel. Vin Diesel claims to be a beta. He's a fucking alpha. If we're thinking the betas, we're thinking the Michael Cera's, the Jonah Hills, the I'm only gonna name Judd Apatow guys, the Seth Rogans. Dude, Seth Rogen. I watched some, like, I don't know if it was Cribs or whatever, but this dude showed his home. This guy has the guy's a millionaire, and he has like fucking comic book action figures on top of his shitty TV. Like, this here's the Green Hornet, and he's shaking hands with Spider-Man. Oh my god, you fucking dork. By the way, I've started hating Jonah Hill for the dumbest of reasons. I didn't like Jonah Hill to begin with, but I really don't like this new trend. It's not new, it's a tale as old as time, but it's more prevalent now, where pretty much everyone in Hollywood is like related to somebody else. It bums me out because back, like, you know, again, I mentioned Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt's from Oklahoma. Johnny Depp is from fucking Kentucky. These were guys who were just like really good looking for their backwater shitheel burbs. Like, I think I'll take the turnip truck to Hollyweird and try to press my luck. And they became huge. A lot of actors had these rags to riches stories, going from nobody to somebody. Head west, young man, and find your fortune. And then you find out shit like Jonah Hill's fucking father was the main accountant for Guns N' Roses during their peak. It's like, ew. Especially when you're like, my name's Jonah Hill. I made a movie called Mid-90s. It's all about our youth. Yeah, your youth as a fucking millionaire trust fund kid in an LA cul-de-sac. Suck my dick, Jonah Hill. You fat, then not fat, then fat again. Fuck, your heart's gonna explode. You would have been better just staying fat. Anyway, fuck Jonah Hill. Gammas. This is where it gets weird. This is where, unfortunately, the alpha beta thing, it took a twist and it became more like, you know, which Spice Girl are you? Answer now on BuzzFeed. The gamma seems to be a basic mix of the alphas and betas. Tend to keep to themselves. They're non-aggressive, but they're not pussies either. They have empathy. This would be the dude who confronts the alpha to leave the beta alone, basically. Think Judd Nelson's character Bender in, I almost said Fast Times at Ridgemont, The Breakfast Club. Bender is very much a gamma. He is, and you know what? I would consider myself this guy. If I'm anything, I'm a gamma. In that, like, I'm not going to be bullied. I'm not going to be pushed around. But ultimately, it's really not good for comedy. Because I think the main thing I glean from a gamma is that they have qualities of alpha, but they ultimately really just don't have a lot of interest in being on the top of a hierarchy. Don't get me wrong, again, when it comes to comedy, I mean, yeah, I would like to be one of the top guys, but, you know, using my influence on other people really has nothing to do with that. It would just be nice to, you know, be recognized and validated, but it's not like, you know, there's like one or two people I'll be like, yeah, I'm up here, you're down there, suck my dick, Jonah Hill. But yeah, that's not it. That's so fucking lame. I just like, this is all pretty dumb. This one that's me is actually pretty cool. Omegas. So betas, only sadder. Loners, small peer group, no ambition. I'd put these guys as like the video game dorks who will date and marry their female counterparts. Like, they're very insular. Like, a beta can still be ambitious. A beta ends up like, you know, can be a congressional aide, can work in the White House. I would put that Jason Miller dickbag as a beta. Like, yes, he had power himself, but ultimately he was just like sniffing Donald Trump's farts. But he had his own aggression. But, you know, he's never going to be the guy. He's going to be the lackey for the guy and do what the guy tells him to do. Whereas the Omega, like, they don't really have that ambition in the first place. They're a fat dork. They're going to marry the female version of themselves that also, you know, eats shitty and doesn't leave the house, and they play video games, and they'll live a very happy life with, like, their 8 friends. That's all they have. That's fine. Be an Omega. Deltas. Deltas might be the worst if not for one. Deltas are, you know what? I fucked up. Anyway, we'll get to it. Deltas are basically incels. Deltas are guys on 4chan, you know, insecure, angry, lashing out, lonely, their own worst enemy. I just read Catcher in the Rye for the first time. Holden Caulfield, a Delta. That entire, I really did enjoy that book, but I enjoyed it obviously with some perspective. Holden Caulfield is a 16-year-old. He's very angry at everyone. He considers them phonies and says everything, you know, would make me puke, and says goddamn and calls people old. Like, oh, my old little sister Phoebe. Old Phoebe was down there. He's a dork, and the fact that he has inspired so many people who saw him as the hero is just, like, by no measure is he meant to be admired. He is a fucking loser. And the only people who, like, you know, just like, oh, these fucking phonies, they're watching movies and ice skating. Yeah, it makes me sick. It makes me puke, fucking phonies. Pretty much anybody who is having a good time or enjoying themselves reeks of phoniness to him. I remember, I'm going to throw him under the bus, but he's not the... I remember my little brother was in the car with me. I won't say which one, but anybody who knows me knows exactly which one. I was like 20, and me and him were driving, and my girlfriend at the time called me on my cell phone. So I picked it up, and I'm like, oh, hey, baby, how you doing? And when I hung up, my brother was like, you know, you put on a fake voice for your girlfriend. Like, what are you talking about? Like, well, your voice is all like, oh, hi, I'm Jesse. And then you answer the phone, you're like, hi, Caitlin, how are you? It's so fake. Like, it's not my voice did that because that's, your voice goes up when you're excited. If you were excited about anything in life, maybe you'd fucking know that. Jesus Christ. Anyway, yeah, Deltas suck. Go fuck yourself. Elliot Rogers is a fucking Delta. The fucking incel shooter dude. And worst of all, I mentioned that Steve Miller guy. I'm wrong. I don't think he's an Omega. I think he's a Sigma. A Sigma is a sociopath, manipulative. Basically, a beta who lies to appear alpha. So, you can shit on alphas all you want. Hey, you know what? We talked about all that South Park earlier. It reminds me of Team America, where they have the argument that there's 3 types of people in the world. Dicks, pussies, and assholes. Dicks try to solve everything with fucking. Pussies don't like dicks, because pussies get fucked by dicks. But then there's assholes who shit on everything. And pussies think they can deal with assholes their own way, but the only way to fuck an asshole is with a dick. With some balls. And sometimes pussies can get so full of shit they turn into assholes themselves. Because pussies are only 1.5 inches away from assholes. Guys, I haven't watched that movie in 5 years. I just remember all of that. But yeah, it's still very much that kind of, you can shit on alphas, and they deserve it, because they're bad, you know, they can be shitty, the toxic masculinity a lot of the time. But these are guys who ultimately, like, you know, they're not faking being powerful, they are powerful. And sometimes they're dickish with it, but they probably try to use their power right. The Sigmas emulate the alphas to try and trick other people to think that they deserve it. These kind of people are prevalent in politics, suck-ups. If you've ever, you know, worked and had the dude who was just a piece of shit fucking you over at every opportunity, like, he's not getting ahead of you by being the better employee. He's getting ahead of you by lying and telling the fucking boss, like, I saw him stealing from the cash register. That's a Sigma. Like Eddie at Italia's Pizzeria in Belmar, New Jersey. Fuck you, Eddie, you piece of drug addict piece of shit. Yeah, it's been 15 years. I don't need to let shit go. Fuck you. Okay, so that's what we have for the spin the wheel Greek alphabet part. Let's go down to a few more specifics of the 2000s era. So like I said, with a lot of the alphas, we had the bros. Again, frat guys. They're after pussy. They're aggressive. Once again, it should be mentioned that all of these groups only apply to people ages like 10 to 25. It's really weird to still be caught up on this shit in your 30s. Some people are. If you if you if you have lived on your own for 5 years and you ever sincerely think of yourself as an alpha or a beta, like, you're not doing good. You're not doing good. The bros guys here, they work out, they love football and sports, drinking, cocaine, and hookers. A weird subset from this, Tucker Max. If anybody who ever read the book, I hope they serve beer in hell. I will give credit, a hilarious book of supposedly real encounters by the author Tucker Max, who wasn't anybody of note. He was a Duke law student who dropped out to become a writer, and he wrote stories about chasing girls and getting fucked up and doing wacky shit with his friends, and it blew up. It seems a lot of it was fake. Opie and Anthony, who I was a big fan of, actually like called him out on air because he had a whole story in his book. By the way, every story in his book is like cancelable in one way or another now, or borderline rape. He talks about the first time he had anal sex with his girlfriend, how she demanded, like, if you want my butthole, you have to take me out to an expensive restaurant. And then they went home and butt fucked. But he said he had a camera in the closet because he wanted to capture the butt fucking. Again, little rapey. But yeah, then on air, they're like, yeah, so where's the tape? It's like, the tape got destroyed. Like, so the only evidence of your tall tale happened to get destroyed. The dog ate your butt sex video. Your homework. So, yeah, but super fucking weird follow-up on Tucker Max. He released a movie version of I Hope They Serve Beer in Hell, starring Matt Zuckery, a.k.a. Logan from Gilmore Girls, Rory's big boyfriend. I don't see Rory with a blonde guy playing him. Movie bombed super bad. So, didn't do anything for years and years. But recently he was the ghostwriter for comedian and actress Tiffany Haddish's memoir, The Last Black Unicorn. So, yeah, Tiffany Haddish, 30-year-old black comedian and actress, decided, you know what, to tell my story, you know who I need? Curly-haired white rich boy from Duke, Tucker Max. So weird. So, again, on the alpha side, we have some weird subspecies, you know, like the Tasmanian striped alpha, if you will. Guidos. I just had comedian Steve Rinaldi on one of my shows the other day. Very funny guy. Check him out. He has a show called Breaking Balls. Look up Breaking Balls with Steve Rinaldi. And I think his co-host is named Mike. Sorry, Mike, I don't know your last name. I'm not looking up right now. But he's a big South Philly Italian, and I think we're going to have him on an episode to discuss something very specific from this time period. Jersey Shore. Actually, you know what? We will get right back to that because of something else. Metrosexuals. So Metrosexuals were, you know, David Beckham, the soccer player and banger of Spice Girls, is listed as an example. Someone who is undoubtedly masculine, but with a preening quality, a big focus on their looks often associated with gays. This term shows its age a little bit, as I think the definition presumes that gays are not masculine, while now we'd be more inclusive of not assuming a gay guy was like a meticulous sissy. But yeah, metrosexual would be very interested in high GQ fashion, sharp haircuts, colognes, you know, dainty men, fops and dandies, if you will, for the new millennium, associated with queer eye for the straight guy. So back to Guido's Jersey Shore types. The reason I skipped that is that they're very much a mix of bros and metrosexual. Like, they're super alpha, very aggressive, fighting all the fucking time. But they're very big on their style and their preening. They also, because they're Italians, they love their moms. They love their culture. They love Jesus, the Virgin Mother. Comedian Kurt Metzger made that great point that all these guys are just like, you wouldn't understand. This is our culture. He made the point like Guido culture is a subculture for tons of ethnicities. Like Italians, Romani gypsies, Greeks, Armenians, Persians. Like, every culture has their subset of loud, aggressive dudes who try to fuck everything, yet will lose their minds if their sister isn't a virgin. They like their dance clubs, but like aside from lifting weights, they generally aren't big on sports, aside from street fighting, which they're all about. Go watch the video of Snooki getting punched out by a fucking teacher. It's so terrible. It's terrible that anybody would punch out anybody, let alone Snooki, who, even for her mouth, is only like 4'7.5" in high heels. And this fucking big dude with, like, jacked arms just fucking decks her in the mouth. And then it turns out he was a teacher and lost his job. And then they interviewed his parents, and even they were like, well, he shouldn't have done it, but, like, what's he gonna do now? They took it too far. That's Italians. Guys, as an Irish guy, it's growing up, if you're Irish or even look Irish, you're gonna have some negative times with Italians. Hey, you want to talk white trash? White trash exotic. White trash mixed race. It's always been said that Irish and Italian mixed babies make very pretty babies. I can think of a few girls I dated her. Shout out TMG out there. She was a cutie. But yeah, it's like white trash. Like, oh, she's half Irish, half Italian. This is a true story. My grandmother told me. My grandmother, Marge Coyle, wherever you are out there, Margaret. Apparently her father, who was very racist and very drunk, alcoholic guy, said this would have been the 1930s. He was telling her this, 1930s, early 40s. Hated Italians so much that I'd rather you come home with an. Oof, that's not the fucking accent. I'd rather you came home with an N-word than one of those greasy wops. If you bring a dago to my table, Margie, I swear to God, you'll feel the back of my hand. Like that. He said that shit, and he meant that shit. He also did not say N-word, and it was as hard in our Irish accents, pretty hard in their R's. It's a hard R. God. But yeah, I felt like that was a good point for Kurt Metzger to make. Like, these guys are not unique. There's, they're all over the place. Ask a fucking Pakistani dude. It's like, my sister fucked the guy down the street. You know what we gotta do? We gotta beat him up and throw acid in her face. Whoops. Okay, so these guys, all right, interesting one. Boy bands. A little more in the late 90s, but, we're jumping around. They were still around there. A safe masculinity. So, like Metrosexuals, this one was very much a business commodity. Metrosexuals, they were a masculine consumer to the market products too. Metrosexuals were the consumer, whereas the boy bands were the products themselves. Now, yeah, to be sold to, like, a young... Who the fuck is texting me? Yeah, to be sold to, like, a young girl market they're interested in boys, but, like, they really, there's nothing... I really hope there's not an 11-year-old who's like, oh, look at that big lumberjack over there. That's just weird. So, these are guys for young girls to be attracted to. Starter boys. They look like a little grown-up version of the hairless little Twinkie boys they're seeing in their schools. So one of the differences in that other thing, in a lot of these other ones, is that you don't really see, this was solely, it stayed in the product. It's not like I saw my peers, the popular kids were dressing like NSYNC, aside from like incidental things from like, the preppy clothes shopping at Old Navy. Here we go. I was looking for this. Taking too long. This is such a good fucking song. Bow, bow. Yeah, if I have anything I will say I was wrong for in middle school, it's forever calling these guys gay. Because first off, they were great singers. The music aged really, really well. And they were swimming in pussy. Aside from Lance Bass. Made you believe it, no man, no cry. Maybe that's why every little thing. Such a weird melody. For you, baby. I'm not like them, maybe, but you finally get to love somebody. Guess what? It's gonna be me. Again, aged very well. So yeah, this is a mold that never changes, because from Jackson 5 to New Edition to New Kids to Backstreet to NSYNC, One Direction, and now BTS and the Korean pop acts, it's all about hairless, skinny, non-threatening boys for pre- and newly pubescent girls to get all hot and bothered over. Now, funnily enough, these groups have their origins in doo-wop, which was way more masculine. It was only in like the 70s and the 80s when they found a way to make that bubblegum pop like teen idol thing. Like, they're going to be... Well, I think the difference is that teen idols initially, when you're talking Elvis was for like 16, 7-year-old girls. Girls that were, maybe still virgins, but like they gave a little handy out on Lover's Lane. They got a little, they got their gigantic bushes played with in their panties and in the back of the fucking 55 Edsel. But it wasn't until like the 70s where you had like Donny Osmond and Leif Garrett and the like that, Bobby Sherman, where these guys were before like Elvis and Sinatra. Sinatra was like fucking dudes' wives. But like, yeah, they were really meant for like the 16, 17-year-old girls. Like, they were really going crazy about it. And then once you hit the 70s with those guys, again, Jackson 5, the Osmonds, they're playing to like 12-year-olds. Like the teen, like really, the seesaw of teen, if you had 12, 13 on one end and 16, 17, 18 on the other end, it leaned way low. So everything changed with that. But yeah, so when it started, when it was more doo-wop, it was much more masculine. And yeah, you even had the, intro of the high-pitched, was it Frankie Lyman? Why do fools fall in love? Like, yeah, he's probably a sissy. That dude's fucking a lot. Of course, turn of the century, Y2K, we got to talk about toxic masculinity. So this is a phrase that came up. And I'm going to say right there, I believe in the term. I think some people want to take it too far. Some people, toxic masculinity, they say it normalizes violence against women, sexual assault, misogyny, homophobia, greed. I agree with that, but I do think there's a lot of people that try to shove a lot more different kinds of masculinity under that umbrella where it does not belong. Like, dudes just need to fight. That's it. Dudes need to fight sometimes. Fighting the weak, yeah, that's toxic masculinity. If you need to put yourself on the pecking order so much that a fucking dude with glasses has a nicer car than you, so you need to fucking threaten him, that's pretty fucking lame. So yeah, don't do that. And obviously, sexual assault, Brock Turner, that fucking guy, who, was fingering a girl by the dumpster, and then the judge gave him a nothing sentence, like, well, I don't want his life to be ruined by this. Like, what? Don't worry about the passed out girl who had, whatever. Yeah, I'm not getting into it anymore than that. That's its own episode. Interesting thing about MMA, interesting thing about masculinity, the rise of the UFC and MMA in the early 2000s. That's when we had the Ultimate Fighter reality show for the MMA fighters. The era this time, boxing had gotten less and less popular due to the lack of dominant heavyweight personalities. This is the era of like the Klitschko brothers, who were in the news lately as freedom fighters in Ukraine. One of them is the mayor of Kiev, and the other one is the baby daddy of Hayden Panettiere. Yeah, how you like that shit? So these guys were like the big heavyweights in boxing at the time, where a lot of the personalities had always been. These guys, English isn't their first language. They fight a slow, powerful style, but it's not like, they're following up fucking Tyson, who obviously, had a lot of fucking charisma on the mic and got into a lot of crazy shit. But even like Lennox Lewis, who were, Evander Holyfield, these were guys who had a lot of flash in their fight. And now you go from these gnarly, agile, charismatic black dudes to just these two dumpy Ukrainian brothers who just they're slow, but man, every fucking hit's like getting a tree stump dropped on you. So, saying the popularity drops at the time. In the lower weight classes, you had Pacquiao, who couldn't speak English, Bernard Hopkins, who never really caught on the mainstream, and Floyd Mayweather, who would dominate in the next decade, spent the original 2000s building his record only to really become who he was in the 2010s. He only fought 18 times in the 2000s. MMA culture exploded with The Ultimate Fighter. Now, martial arts have been around forever. Me and Sidney talked about that. He said, like, oh, well, martial arts used to be seen as dorky. Like, I don't know, man. I mean, my cousin knows karate is a thing I remember on the schoolyard forever ago, and I always thought, I don't know. But, so yeah, martial arts have been around forever, hilariously blowing up in the 80s and early 90s in conjunction with Jean-Claude Van Damme movies, the Power Rangers, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, of all things. But this is the era where suddenly every person in America knows at least one person who does jujitsu. There are thousands of great videos online of these big lunks picking fights with little dudes at bars where the little dudes turn out to be like flyweight MMA fighters, just destroying these dudes twice their size. Like, I have seen, give an idea how this changes in the real world. In WWE and wrestling, they have submission moves, obviously, where you lose if you either quit or you pass out. So somebody gets you, say, in the sharpshooter, Bret the Hitman Hart's maneuver. The match would be done when you said I quit or I gave up. You didn't tap out. There are old wrestling videos you watch where the thing's in for a second and they're tapping, but they're angrily slamming their hand. But that wasn't what submission was yet. But now MMA gets popular, and their notion of tapping out of a submission maneuver gets added to wrestling. Changes wrestling a lot, actually, because a lot of shit we know would end a fucking fight now are like interstitial moves in wrestling. Sleeper hold. Sleeper hold is the lame thing. Hulk Hogan will stay in a sleeper hold for 8 minutes. Then when it's time to Hulk up, he busts out of it. Then you see fucking MMA and realize a sleeper hold, like, oh, you hold somebody in a sleeper hold for 8 minutes, you're getting a manslaughter charge. You can't last more than 8 seconds in that fucking thing. You're cutting off the blood to their brain. So that changes. I've even seen people tap out while being choked out in a street fight. Yeah, no rules. Just like, I'll fuck you. I'll fuck your girlfriend. I'll fuck your mother. You got me. You got me. All right, buddy, too much. Whew, okay. And the guy will actually let him out of the chokehold. So weird. Anyway, on to the beta side. We got emos. We talked about them. But goths, but they're more depressed than cynical. Goths have a superiority complex. Emos have an inferiority complex. Goths still like to get fucked up and sleep around, but emos are just too self-loathing. Definitely betas. Though if you were smart about it, it's also just a great subculture if you're into artsy girls. Makeup, bangs covering their eyes, wearing black, band shirts, eyeliner, nail polish. We talked all about it. Weird one. This is a little later in the 2000s. The hipsters, a.k.a. craft beer masculinity. They brought back the beards, the shitty tattoos. There are the weak, arty hipsters, and then there's the branch of the, like, I'm a barber / carpenter / sailor hipsters that are more traditionally masculine. But even then, it's kind of hollow. It's a little too clean. Great quote I read in an article. These types of hipsters practice hobbies that used to be professions, like brewing beer, making soap, but it's mostly playing dress up and paying service to old school manliness while also being extremely liberal and left wing and well read on feminism. So, like, they want to be their grandpas, only without the wife beating and with hipper music, which, hey, you know what? There's certainly worse fashions to get into than that. I mean, I wouldn't consider myself a hipster, but I think other people probably would. I like my craft beer. I have a beard. I read old esoteric books, and yes, I do think it makes me better than you. Thank you for asking, but don't ask again, you peon. Ooh, I hope, thank God I got this pop screen on that hard P on the peon. See, I have shitty tattoos as well. I'm finishing my shitty tattoo at the end of the month. I can't wait. Especially, it's on my chest, and then I'm going to have a little girl like a month later, so I'm going to be, they do the thing in hospitals now where the dads take off their shirts. where the dads take off their shirts and do skin to skin with the baby. So I'm gonna have this baby against my chest with this just dumb tattoo. It's not a dumb tattoo. I got after my dad died, I got the words of a death song tattooed on my chest. Life will never last. However, I had a different design in mind at first, and then when I showed up, the guy was like, "Oh, actually, that won't work." Like, well, whatever. Just do it this way, and I'll get to it later. So I pretty much just had like it looked like a bumper sticker, and it was just the words "Life will never last" in like fancy script, but it was just a straight line across my clavicle. Well, in the intervening years, it was almost 10 fucking years, I fell in love with the movie The Seventh Seal, which is all about death. As a matter of fact, if you've ever seen any artistic representation of the Grim Reaper playing chess with somebody, it is from The Seventh Seal. A Swedish knight during the Crusades takes on the manifestation of the Grim Reaper and fights to stay alive by playing him in this game, saying, "As long as we play, I live." So in addition to Life Will Never Last, I now have an iconic scene from that drawn out under my under the tattoo on it with the chess pieces on either side. It's really gnarly looking, but it's going to be weird to have Life Will Never Last and then like hold my little baby girl. There's my little baby girl on my chest. Life will never last. No, it won't. No, it won't. Life is a death sentence. The way to join the world, honey. Don't be grabbing my nipples. There's no milk there, even though Daddy has his own boobs. Daddy has a drinking problem. That's what happens with that. I'm actually having a sober night right now, so it's terrible. Sobriety sucks. I'm against it. New idea. I got an argument with somebody about this today. New ideas in masculinity. Polyamory. Yeah, I saw this as like the craftier versions of the hipster beta set. Polyamory is like open relationships. We date multiple people, but we're always honest with each other, so that's okay. I really don't. Honesty always comes up with it. Where they talk about like, well, we're dating other people, but if they want to see somebody, they let me know. It's not like cheating where we're running around all secretive and, not hurting each other's feelings all the time with feelings of inadequacy. We're honest with each other. And that's what I don't get. Because, like, if my girl was getting another dick all up inside of her, my reaction to that is like, that's fucking gross. Ew. I am just so straight, I don't want dicks anywhere near me. And if a dick is in my wife's pussy, it's too near to me. But these people, it's not like, they don't have any gross to it. It's like, you fucked another guy? Well, I feel left out. I wish I could have been there. I wish I could have gone to the party with everybody else, but they just didn't even tell me and let me home. Dorks. Yeah, I don't, I'll be honest. I see polyamory as manipulation. There's always a power dynamic. There's always one person who's just going along with it. And I really hate the intellectualization that goes in. Well, actually, the cavemen were polyamorous. Here, let me show you this book. It's called The Dawn of Sex. By the way, it was disproven about 6 months after it came out. But I always hate that shit where it's like, actually, this thing that's been a trend for 5 years really has quite a history to it. Would you believe? Would you believe that? And a lot of them get into the philosophy. They take all jealousy is evil. Ergo, your wife should just fuck other people. Your husband should fuck other people. Why would you be possessive of me? Oh my God, that's so backwards thinking. You don't want me to fuck other people. You're basically a Nazi. You don't want me to have autonomy over my body. God, I need the liberation of sweet jism across my brow. It's fucking lame. And it becomes people's personality. And that's fucking lame. Like, you have a kink, and you're gonna throw your whole fucking life away on a kink for a hobby. Usually they're not fuckable in the first place. Buddy, you're lucky anyone's fucking you. I don't know what the fuck you're doing opening the floodgates, but I don't know. To each their own doesn't necessarily make you a bad person, just a dumb person. And of course, if we're talking changing masculinity, we got to talk about the addition of transgender and non-binary. Not the addition, they've been around forever, but I do feel the 2000s is when the discussion enters the mainstream. We have Chaz Bono, son of Cher and Sonny Bono, doing, transitioning from chastity to Chaz. A lot of people trying to do away with gender entirely. You know, women can become men and vice versa. I have a trans man cousin. We don't get along. I personally saw a lot of tryhardism. By the way, we don't get along not because they're trans, just because in addition to transitioning into a man, they transitioned into an asshole. And, you know, hindsight being 2020, like, oh, they'd been a self-centered prick who didn't care about me for a long time before this shit happened. So, but yeah, definite try hard. I remember in their first year of being a man, when we were still talking, tried to tell me like, oh, I almost got in a fight at a bar because someone was hitting on my girlfriend. Like, oh, okay, well that's something that happens. Well, what happens? Like, well, this guy was talking to my girlfriend, and I was just like, hey man, she's with me. And then he gave me an ugly look and he walked away. Yeah, I'm a man now. I put the fear of God in him. We almost duked it out. I could see in his brain he was thinking bottles and chains under the overpass, but then he saw my awesome masculinity and was like, nah, I need to live to fight another day. So you had basically you had somebody hit on your girlfriend, and you projected a lot of shit onto it. I don't know. I shouldn't even be talking on this. I unfortunately I talked about this before. My initial experiences with transgender people were I met two really shitty ones. I met great ones since then, but my first ones, whoo boy, not a good mix at all. So with that. That is Masculinity in the 2000s. We are now going to go to an interview with the most masculine man of them all. Check him out on Two Jacked Bros. Check him out on all his appearances. Sidney Gantt. Sid the Kid.
What makes a man?
Sidney
Is
the
it
Kid.
the woman in his arms? Just cause she has big titties? Or is it the way he fights every day? No, it's probably the titties. Now you're a male. Oh my, oh my, oh my, oh. Now you're a my, oh my. Now you're a male.
All right, guys, it is KYEY2K. You know me, I'm Jesse Graham. This week, we're talking about masculinity at the turn of the millennium. As interesting a topic as there ever has been. Joining me, comedian and one of the hosts of Two Jacked Bros, Sidney Gantt. How you doing, Sid?
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, man. I wanted to have you on for a bit. We needed to find the right topic, and I felt like this was a good one. Me and I know you were on Neil Wood's podcast, Cult of Us, sometime in the last few months, and he had actually just stated out of the blue, like, I feel like so not a man listening to his stories. Like Sidney just fears no man, just like goes through life, just not to suck your dick too much, but you're a pretty cool dude, I would think.
I mean, I'm having a good time, you know. I'm doing my best to live life the way that I would like to.
That is, if nothing else is the definition of a man, I'd say that right there. So, Sid, before we get started, tell us where we could find you. Anything you got to promote. This will be coming out like next Wednesday.
Okay, just check out Two Jack Bros podcast. It's the only podcast that takes comedians and or other people through the process of enlightenment so that the audience can laugh their way to a higher consciousness. It's a really good time. It's a really unique format. And there's no way you're going to watch any episode without coming away with something.
Hell yeah. All right, man. That's great. So yeah, what we've been talking about on here, I've changed formats on this podcast a few times just because, well, fuck it, it's a podcast. So why the hell not? Started out as like a book club. Then we were getting into like discussing fandoms, and then we just fell into like 2000 stuff recently. So I've been watching a lot of like, you know, Napoleon Dynamite, fucking Boondock Saints. We watched Juno recently, and I don't know, just very interesting. For me, that was when I was coming of age. How old were you when like 2000 hit?
I was 20.
Okay, so
like the very year 2000, I was 20.
Okay, so like the 2000s could be said to be like your prime, your real like coming of age era, because that would be like 17 to 27, right?
I mean, I don't know. I'm a stand-up comedian. I don't know if I've come of age yet. You know.
That's very true. And that's also something, again, freaking me out a little bit about having a kid of like, you get to that point where it's like, how much of this, what I'm doing is just like kind of playtime. Like, can I do this and still be like the fucking dad and like breadwinner that I need to be?
Mm-hmm. The commitment level is severe. It's one of those things where, I have a degree in economics. So when I came out of college, the idea of going into comedy for me was like not working in the corporate world. But now I'm in this situation where, things are going kind of well for me in comedy, but like I work 24/7, like there's never, I can't take any time off. And as a matter of fact, you always need to be working harder. Right. And, as a stand-up comedian, like my goal is to make people laugh and have a good time. So when I'm being funny, you're not supposed to see how hard I'm working.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's definitely no, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like with a ballerina, right? If you're watching someone do like beautiful ballet, you might not realize it, but one of the reasons that it's so graceful is because you're not seeing the ballerina straining. You're not hearing her grunt, the whole point of it. Like a lot of people want to believe that, the whole point of comedy is to make it look spontaneous. And I guess I agree with that to a certain extent, but I think the most important thing is to make it look effortless.
I agree on that. I've seen quite a few comedians like completely shoot themselves in the foot because they're just such hard believers of like having to be in the moment. And sometimes, following like every thread that happens in a room and pretty much following it to their own detriment, because then like they depart from what their material is. And then by the time they come back to it, like they don't even know where they've been, what they've done. If anything, it reeks of effort, I'd say.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like anytime it looks like you're straining or struggling, it's not a fun thing to watch, as far as high level entertainment, like people, I mean, that's the beauty of high level entertainment, high level anything. I mean, you look at the highest level of anything, it looks effortless.
So is that like kind of I'm very curious what your philosophy is on like hard work. Like, how do you approach these things so that they work for you? You have enough time for yourself, your family, like everything. How do you make it work?
I just had to intertwine everything, like my house, like, this studio is in my house. This is where we record the podcast. So all of the guests that you have seen on my podcast, they actually coming to my home, So my downs, like we have one whole room downstairs that is completely converted into a gym, and it has like 100 square feet of mat space for us to drill because my wife competes in jiu-jitsu. Shout out to Mo. She just won pans and purple belt today, actually. So she's coming home, a real deal gold medalist, so, but everything is intertwined, man. There's no part of my house that isn't functional for the way that we live our lives. Like nothing's fancy, everything's practical, and everything has something to do with the way that we live our lives. So it's just all intertwined.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that is the only real way to do it. I feel like I'm always trying to serve multiple masters between like, trying to be Mr. Ha-ha guy and then also, be here for my wife, especially as she's getting ready for the baby and all that. So not quite sure how that balance is going to come, but we'll see, man.
Well, you're not like just waiting to make her laugh until she has the baby though, right? I mean, humor is a really good part of just like dealing with the process of pregnancy. Yeah, that's a ridiculous thing. And I don't know how deeply you and your wife talk, but it's scary for women.
Pretty deep.
You're about to burst with another human being out of your body. And that's like the anticipation of what kind of pain that could be. I mean, like that's just one aspect of it, but just like, that's like, it's good to be able to, it's rewarding even to be able to be a place where, like for my wife, she can come talk to me about anything. She just has to know that, my brain might process it in a humorous way, and, she's cool with it.
Yeah, no, at this point, I mean, we talk deep, we talk about all of this. It is just a little bit of like, she's going through something that I'm there. I'm aware of the mechanics of it, but I personally cannot really, live through it. So I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to be there for her. But man, it is a lot. They go through a lot. Not only that, but she is doing so hard to keep in shape. She's exercising every single day, 7 months pregnant, and she's putting in more work than I probably am trying to keep in shape myself.
That's good, man. That's gonna pay dividends when it comes time to heal up. Regardless of whether or not she bursts it out of her vagina or if she gets it cut out of her, she's that healing. When you're fit, you heal better. That's just a fact of life. That's an objective fact. There's no way around that. And if they have to cut you open, you get your. I saw that happen with when my son was born. I was in the room during the C-section. I wasn't supposed to be, but it was an emergency C-section, and everything just happened rapidly. And they cut a hole that is not quite big enough to pull out a baby. They cut through muscle. They cut through fat, muscle, all this shit to get to the baby. And the hole isn't big enough. So what they do is they stretch it out. They widen it. With force, like hands and tools and stuff. It's an insane process, man. It's like. So that is going to take some healing. And if the baby comes out of the vagina, it destroys muscle. I know women that can't pee the same. Or as a matter, I'll put it to you this way. I know women that can't stop pissing from having a baby out of their vagina.
Yeah. No, that seems to be like the running joke I've heard on a lot of things is like, oh yeah, no, I had a baby. And now every time I laugh, I piss my pants a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, my wife had a C-section with both of them because once you have a C-section the first time, that's just how they have to do it. We had twins the second time. So
same, me and all three of my brothers for the same reason. I was in there too long. They had to pluck me out. So then of course they were all C-sections. Yeah.
So my wife's vagina is as tight as the day I met her. We've been together for 22 years and I haven't noticed a single difference in her vagina.
Wow. See, that's always crazy to me that you guys have been together for like such a long time. And you know what? This will probably lead us into our topic a little bit. Because again, you seem like a pretty, as long as I've known you and I know going back, you've done MMA, you've been a real like stand-up kind of, I guess alpha would be the term. You got to understand.
I've not done MMA. I've always been a martial artist. I train in jiu-jitsu now.
Okay.
And I trained in judo before.
Okay.
But that was judo.
I got you. So for the sake of this podcast, I'm going to be using a lot of terms I think are actually like kind of cringy just because we're talking about those terms. I would say alpha being one of them, but you seem like an alpha kind of guy. So how do you really balance that with, I'm trying to forget where exactly I was going here, but yeah. So I would say one of like the characteristics we think about a lot when we think like a real alpha guy, we honestly think about like running around chasing pussy left and right. And yet here you are, you've been with somebody for the bulk of your life, this one person. Did you ever have any did you ever have any buddies giving you shit about it? Do you have any like cognitive dissonance of like, I should be out there doing such and such at any point, particularly when you were a younger guy?
Oh, I did such and such when I was a younger guy,
Okay.
And, for what it's worth, I mean, like I'm in a position in my lifetime where I'm with the person, my dream woman, the person that I want to be with for the rest of my life, a person who I have, what can be considered a samurai-like loyalty and honor to, but at the same time, I can't say that I never cheated on her. Like I can never ever claim that the person I'm with, it was a pure and chaste relationship. That's just not the truth. Right. So before we met and in the beginning of when we met, I was a pussy hound. I was embarrassed to embarrassing levels.
Mm-hmm. Tell me what young Sidney was like.
Dude, I was a very funny, clever, smart guy who had a very solitary focus of getting pussy. I was young. I was always a hard worker, right? So I was a really good athlete, and I stood out in basically everything that I have ever been a part of. I've always been able to stand out, but I put the work in, and it's I have some natural ability in things, of course, but it pales in comparison to the amount of work that I actually put into things. So, when you're somebody that's kind of being hoisted up on the shoulders of the masses, you know, there's pussy to be had.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, any pussy that was willing to have me, I was willing to have it. And I you know, I did that for quite a long time. So I hung out with every group. There was no, I wasn't, I had to, again, if my goal is to get pussy, there are hot chicks in every single group in high school and college. Like, you know, the cheerleaders, the theater girls, the stage crew, the band chicks, you know, there's pussy all across the board. And, you know, I wasn't, you know, just that focus alone, I think, put me in a position where I'm really good at talking to all sorts of people in one voice.
You were Baskin Robbins. You were try all 32 flavors.
I mean,
hey, I get it.
Yeah,
I get it, dude.
No,
People,
no.
a lot of people I meet get surprised with me when they find out that I have dated, like, I've dated a lot of different ethnicities. I dated a couple Black girls, a Puerto Rican girl. Actually, just the other day, somebody was talking about Mexico City. Like, oh yeah, the last girl I dated before my wife was from Mexico City. And it's, I don't know. I think some people would try to make it kind of like gross or like, you know, oh, you're fetishizing people. But I do think it's cool, just like, you know, sampling everything that's out there, you know, different people from different places with different experiences.
I mean, I you know, that's the way I live my life. I cannot speak to any other way. Like, I would never claim that my way is the best way. My way was my way, right? Mm-hmm. And my way, yeah, I got the fuck a lot.
Okay. Well, shit, I'm glad that all worked out for you. So, all right. Let's talk a little bit more about, again, talking about young Sidney. You said you're just like an athletic guy. How are you like dressing? Were you like, I'm trying to figure out where you fit on like this scheme of guys from this era. Because I'm thinking of a lot of the, you know, fashions and the attitudes at the time. You had like, were you in a frat?
No.
Did you run around with a bunch of people in a frats?
Everybody, frats, not frats, you know, every club, you know, like I was a social butterfly, man. Like I have no limitation. There's not an opinion you can have that will make me stop from having a conversation with you. I don't care. I don't care what you think, how you feel. I'll talk to anybody, man. I'll kick it with anybody. I came from a really chaotic environment, and you know, I had to learn to love some really fucked up people. So, you know, that kind of really let my guard down on what I'm willing to engage with, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I get how that works. So, let me ask you this: as somebody, you've been doing martial arts your entire life, you said, right? I would say that. Okay. So around this time in the 2000s, this was something I particularly wanted to talk about. This is right around the rise of like UFC, MMA. Obviously, it had been around for 10 years, if not more. But I felt like this was the time where suddenly like everybody knows somebody who's like doing jujitsu or taking a class or something like that. Did you feel anything, as somebody who'd been involved in martial arts for such a long time, did you feel any kind of like social change as like more and more people got into this? Were you noticing more lunkheads trying to throw their weight around? Or was like the new people coming to it, were they getting the actual spirit of martial arts? Or were they just like, you know, I want to crush heads like the fucking UFC guys?
I mean, it's tough to say, right? Because I mean, I would have to go based off of what I felt like I was experiencing, right?
Yeah.
Now, you know, people knowing that you do a martial art, that doesn't mean anything to them, especially if they have no context for it, right? Mm-hmm. So before like Hoist Gracie came around and showed you what a scrawny guy could do with the knowledge of a martial art, you know, it didn't really, it changed the way people used to challenge me a lot, you know, like try to fight me a lot. And because it wasn't their fault, their perspective of what a person who does the martial arts was a fucking dork. You know, so it's like, it's a dorky thing. You coming home in a gi from, you know, somewhere. It's like while other kids are out on their bikes doing bunny hops and indos. And you just look like people see it as a dorky thing to do. And then a lot of times people are in these striking arts of like Taekwondo or karate, and somebody can throw a lucky punch and win a fight, right? A lot of these the way people spar in these karates and taekwondos and stuff, they're not like sparring for what would happen in a fight. They're sparring for some sort of competition, point karate, or point scoring, or it just doesn't put them in a position necessarily to win a fight all the time, or better yet, to be in a fight. That's one of the things that people don't realize about fighting. It's not really about your ability to like hit somebody or take a hit, but it's about, are you willing to stay mentally and emotionally in the fight? And it's, some people aren't prepared for what a fight is, and coming from those striking martial arts early on, right? I think things are better now because of MMA. A lot of martial arts schools have kind of transitioned into also teaching how to actually fight with the martial art, which is pretty sick. And because of that, we're seeing an influx of moves that we used to think were cool on movies and shit, but then MMA came out and was like, yeah, but those moves don't actually work in a fight. And now we're seeing those moves work in a fight, which is, I think that's pretty sick.
You know what's funny? I've actually seen a very weird place that has had an effect is I'm a fan of professional wrestling. And honestly, MMA has had a huge turnaround on just like how they put moves together, just because they know one of the oldest moves in wrestling is a fucking sleeper hold, which if anybody's seen it is basically like a blood choke. But now guys don't do that hold because people know from enough of reality that no, that's something that actually puts you down. You don't just fucking like Hulk out of it because you all of a sudden your adrenaline kicks in. Like, no, motherfuckers go down because of that.
Yeah.
So
and also
they pull away.
In wrestling, they can't have it look as tight as it's supposed to look. Like, we know how tight that has to be in order to actually choke a person. And if you even get in the position, like without even squeezing, there's like a slow choke out, right? So I can get you in that position and I can squeeze and that'll put you out at about 4 to 6 seconds, right? But I can also get you in that position and just get it tight but not squeeze, and that'll put you out in about 12 to 15 seconds. It's a slow blood close,
Ooh.
So
what would be the reasoning to do a slow one versus a fast one that might like disarm somebody?
I mean, they typically happen when the person who's doing the choking isn't quite sure whether or not they have the right grip to start squeezing, and they're still trying to finagle that. And just the length of holding that position tends to put people out. Yes, again, you don't want to waste a squeeze if you don't have it, right? And because that's energy out, right? And energy out. We don't, let's consider that like a different type of matter, like human energy. Matter cannot, once you matter out, you got to build that back up, so you need rest and all that shit. But yeah, so again, it's trusting that you have the position is what tends to lead to that slower choke out.
Okay. So I honestly, for a split second, I thought it was going to be something like, oh no, this is like the badass thing you do just to make sure somebody's really contemplating how bad they fucked up just a little bit longer until the lights go out. But
yeah, that's somebody who looked at your wife's tits a little too long.
Yeah, exactly. And I will say around the same time, one of the things I tend to like watching like street fight videos. And one of the things you kept seeing popping up in that era was just repeatedly, it would always be like two dudes at a club and there'd be like some big, like, college football guy throwing his weight around. And then all of a sudden this little dude who it turns out has some training just tagging these guys up. Like,
yeah. Well, I mean, every fight that I ever got in, again, I came from a grappling background. So every fight that I ever got in, I would just grab somebody, slam them really hard on their back to knock the wind out of them. And then that just makes people change their mind about wanting to fight you. Like once they feel their feet over top of their heads, and then they land on their back and can't breathe right, suddenly they want to make up and, be the bigger man. But so I had to do that less as knowledge of because here's the thing, man. if you look at me, you might be able to be like, yeah, he's fit, but there really is no way to explain to a person, to like the layman who's not familiar with like grapplers and things, how strong I am, right? Like I've been and it's not even like, dude, I lift a lot. I've been wrestling men, for a large portion of my life, trying to pin men down who don't want to be pinned down, trying to, like tap men out who don't want to be tapped, and who are trying to do the same to me. It's just like they call it farm strength, that's basically what it is. Dude, this is not like I'm a very, very strong human, and it was a cool thing to see. Is like, 'cause I was never malicious, it was like I would rather be the person that does one thing and makes the person quit than be a person brutally kicking somebody's ass, right? Because one of them gets you pussy, the other one doesn't.
Right. Handling your business versus, like flat out just destroying somebody. And you mentioned before where they're teaching right now more like the mentality of being in a fight. Like if somebody's coming into a fight and they're picturing themselves like, I'm going to stand, I'm going to throw hands, people are going to break us up. And then suddenly their head is smacked against the floor. Like, this is not where I pictured myself, Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I've always made sure not to crack somebody's head on the ground. I was always very careful about that. Like, when you've been doing this stuff long enough and you've been slamming people long enough, you can make the proper adjustments to have them land on their body where you want them to land. And I always made sure I'm trying to get them to land kind of almost flat on their back, so it knocks the wind right out of them.
Right. Okay. And what you said before about like farm strength, I only recently started doing jujitsu a little bit. And when I came home and I was talking to my wife, I said, like, it really redefines, like, everybody knows the word manhandled, but like the actual experience of like somebody using their force as much to the most of their power to just stop me from moving in the way I want to. It's people live their entire lives almost never experiencing that.
Yeah, man.
And it's jarring.
It is. It's like, and my wife has like farm strength, and she also was like an athlete her whole entire life. So she wasn't necessarily grappling, but she was doing things like cross-country skiing, diving, swimming, like things that require a great deal of strength. Because again, in diving, the whole thing is to make it look effortless. So if you take a gymnast, you take a ballerina, you put them in jujitsu, you'll have similar type strength to a person that's been grappling their whole entire lives. Not quite, because there's something to be said about technique and positioning that adds to the strength, but they'll feel strong, and like my wife has, so I see her lock up with people and you just see a change in their eyes. Like, what the fuck is this? This is like, these are also people that train to grapple other people, and it's, I have a similar thing when I grapple guys. Like, I don't care how big you are, man. If you grapple against me, you will come away thinking that you'll be shocked at my strength.
Yeah. Didn't I see a video where you went to some like kind of competition that involved like specifically like stoner Brazilian jiu-jitsu? Did I read that right?
The high rollers tournament.
Please describe that, because that looked, if it is what I think it is, it sounds like the greatest idea ever.
Yeah, you get high and then grapple, and then you stick to the credo. Like, so when you're like, I won one of the satellites to make it into the finals, which were in California. And there, if a ref feels like you're not high enough, they'll stop the match and have you smoked. So this was just honor. This was honor code, for this match. And I definitely lived up to the code. I was like, there was never, anytime I wasn't grappling, I was definitely smoking the whole entire time. And
how does that change the experience of grappling?
Well, yeah, I'm also a fucking hippie. So like, I've never encountered weed in a way where I didn't start smoking until I was like 22, 23. So I don't have any like weird fear or paranoia or like any stigma baked into it. I just completely use it to open my mind and focus my mind and do all sorts of fun mental shit. So, it's you can see things ahead. You can deal with pressure a lot better. Like for me, especially if I get stuck under somebody who's like crushing my soul, I can find the humor in it, to help me deal with it until I figure out a way to get out or the bell rings, I'm more willing to try moves that I wouldn't normally try. Or like when you have, okay, so you train a little bit. So, and this is when you're doing anything. When you're doing anything, you're focused on the main thing. This is stand-up comedy as well. And in your periphery, there are other thoughts going off, right? Now, some of those thoughts will be good ideas, some of those thoughts will be bad ideas, right? But you don't know unless you try, and a lot of times you don't even try. You just stick to what you know, right? When I'm high, I'm more willing to reach out to the right or left and grab one of those periphery ideas and see what it does for me,
Okay, cool. Yeah, see, I'm still so new that I'm like, I'm actively trying to figure out what I should be doing. Like, I'm still completely unsure-footed when it comes to offense. Defense, I can move around, and I've been through enough just to know, like, don't do this instinct because it's going to end up with your arm wrapped around your head like that. Fighting your natural instincts that you realize, is just putting it, basically closing the trap on you further.
Well, are you in the gi?
I do it on and off.
Okay.
Yeah, the place I'm using, they have like their own. I haven't bought my own, so sometimes I'll just wear. Sometimes they have a thing that my buddy will lend me, and sometimes I'm just in like shorts and like tights and shit.
Okay. The gi is like where you just can't, there's a certain type of grip strength that you can't develop unless you're in the gi.
Okay. That's something to consider. All right. So let me ask you this. As somebody who, can handle your own business, you really don't seem to be, all right, let me ask you, have you ever been in a situation where you were suddenly like, despite having all this confidence in yourself, where you were overpowered, where suddenly like the tables turned? Like, how do you, with having such confidence in your ability and your strength, have you ever found yourself in a situation where that wasn't enough? And how did you handle that?
No, honestly, no. It's like when you're like through my hero's journey, I definitely held my head down and had to regroup, but a lot of those times it was probably for like maybe losing my cool when in a situation where I felt that I could have not, or it would have been, the better option would have been to not have lost my cool the way that I did. Like those sorts of embarrassment, like I gotta be honest with you, man. I might be too delusional to have noticed.
That's very honest.
Yeah, because I'm again like confidence. Like I'm like I always joke that I'm like the adult version of the Chicken Hawk from Looney Tunes.
Okay.
Well, you remember the Chicken Hawk? Like, remember there was like a Foghorn Leghorn.
Yeah, it was his nephew that always wanted to fucking go at it, right?
Well, not his nephew. He was an actual chicken hawk. He wasn't a chicken. He was an infant, a teenage chicken hawk, or like a young chicken hawk. And he's always like, and even if something bad happened to him, he always spun it in a way where it was a good thing for him. So that's me, man. Like I either win or I learn. You know what I mean? So like I don't ever remember feeling like overpowered, especially in a dangerous situation. Okay.
Well, that's good. Hopefully, most of us can go through our lives without that. So again, as somebody who, you seem to have a good head on your shoulders, in addition to having like a little, some ability. What do you think of when you see the guys who are, have some of the same things, but like, kind of bullies, kind of dickheads, basically, almost insecure in their own power, that they have to like take it out on others, be shitty to other people? What do you think of that?
Well, I think it's something that is, man, listen, being a human is difficult, right? And we all go through something, and we all have to deal with that in one way or the other. I'm not in support of bullies. Like, one of my claims to fame, like that's what I did. I fought bullies mostly. Like growing up, like I always ended up fighting somebody that would have been considered a bully. Because that shit doesn't play over here. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a sweet guy, I'm a nice guy, and a lot of times that is misconstrued as a fearful guy, or a guy that ain't about that life, which in a lot of ways I guess I'm not. You know what I mean? But when it comes down to like handling myself physically, like listen, I'll be who and how I want to be wherever I am. There's no group that's going to make me change the way that I talk, the way that I move through the world. It's not going to happen. Now, those people that are that way, I don't want to say I feel sorry for them because I don't really pity anybody. Everybody has a path that they have to walk, but it's like, it sucks. It sucks that that's where they are in their life, and it sucks that they're missing out. They're leaving so much joy on the table, right? And for me, it's like they remind me how thankful that I am not that way, right? Because like that's the thing. Like I don't really like. I don't be like, oh, these type of people suck or this type. It's just like, no, when I see those types of people, I'm just reminded of how thankful I am that I am not that way, right? Like when I see people trying to screw each other in comedy and like stab people behind their back or like fuck their lives over, I'm not like, those, I don't feel like they got to be plucked from the earth. They remind me of the fucking effort that it takes to be in the position that I am in life, and it's, and it just makes me happy. Like, those sometimes when you're laying in bed at night, you're like, what the fuck am I doing all this work for? And it's like, oh yeah, not be that,
Right. Yeah. And I think that is the really healthy way to look at it, just because it can be something that eats you up a little bit.
Yeah, but I never had time to get eaten up by something because I needed to get pussy, Jesse.
See, that seems to be the prime motivator and that does seem to be the thing that really separates like the assholes from the cool dudes. The assholes, they tend to just want to be shitty to people, but really, if you're going out for pussy, there's only so bad you can really be because you gotta have, you gotta be salty and sweet,
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, you can't be a pushover. I'm never a pushover. I'm not going to let it. I don't care how hot you are. I'll find another chick. That's one of the things that, being heavily on the quest for pussy teaches you. Like, good, bad, or indifferent. It teaches you that you don't need any one chick. So if this chick wants to be shitty towards you, fuck her. You'll find another one that will replace her and be way better.
Yeah. No, that is that, dude. If I could go back again, this is what I was going to say before. When you were talking about looking at these people and saying like, I'm just glad I'm not them. It made me think of some of my like, I would say I was like a pretty angry teenager, which a lot of dudes are. But just like looking back now, and even listening to like a lot of the music I was listening to back then, like Slipknot or a lot of these new metal songs, and just realizing like, oh, I was just trying to be a fucking porcupine, just like keeping people away at all times, thinking like, yeah, this makes me tough and a badass. Like, dude, you just look like you're fucking afraid of everybody. Like a porcupine is. A porcupine isn't badass. He's fucking scared, so he's got a million knives on his back, so you won't get to his soft little belly.
Yeah, man, I couldn't wait to rub soft bellies with other people. Dude, I love rubbing bellies, and dude, I remember one time when I was a little kid, because I've always kind of been this way, and it's like it has evolved over time. But I remember when I was like, like fifth or sixth grade, sixth grade, because I was definitely in middle school, but not eighth grade because I wasn't about to go to high school. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So probably sixth or seventh grade, but probably sixth grade. But I heard something about Buddhism, and like I don't remember what it was. I heard it. I was like, wait a second, that's what I try to do, And like I read some more things about what Buddhism is, and it was like, fuck, I guess I'm a Buddhist. Like I not even that. Like, dude, I was so fucking cocky. I was like, I guess I figured out Buddhism. Like I felt like I already knew it. And it's just like. Never looked into it any more than that, other than to believe in that I already created it, and later on in life, like in my 20s and stuff, I actually did some research, but it was good to just see that there was that way of being, and so it's like yeah, man, I try to take a realistic and pragmatic approach to everything, right? And you got to be very honest with yourself. And if you're holding in some sort of resentment towards a person, it's not because of that person. It's because of what of you is represented in that person, And I hold that very close to the chest because, there's some people that we both mutually know that like tried to fuck me over pretty badly at a point,
Yeah.
and it sucked, right? And I was starting to kind of like lose my temperament through some of that, like, but I had to take a step back and realize, like, I was just angry at the I'm not a spiteful person, but like I have spite inside of me, and it was just like the levels of what, because you want to retaliate in kind, right? And
right. You want to, there is a thing of like revenge, of like, and not only revenge, but like somebody thinking they can get one over on you. So you kind of want to take them down a peg just to remind them where they are.
Right. And then I was in a position where I was trying to take people down a peg, and my whole entire existence is about lifting people up, So it's like, why am I willing to do that here? And it was like, because I have it in me. And it's like, this is a place to exercise it. And, once I realized that, I was able to just back off. Like, there's no reason for me to come down to their level to try to push them down further.
Yeah, that's shit I'm still trying to come along on. Especially, that's one of the things that just sucks about the comedy scene, is there's just so fucking many of us that you're gonna meet some real shit people at certain points. And it's hard to not, especially because, again, it's comedy. We're used to going tit for tat. It's very easy to sink to somebody else's shit level just to, like, but at the end of the day, it's like, I'm trying to prove a point to what? Somebody I don't fucking like or respect in the first place. Why?
Dude, Jesse, we come from the earth. It is in us all to mix it up in the mud. You know what I mean? And we all we all want to get back to our roots and fucking sling mud at some point. But is that how does that track with your goals?
It doesn't. Overall, it doesn't. And the honest to God truth is that if I was, the truth is, if I was doing better in my own position, then I wouldn't even give a fuck. I just found out the other day, a guy I ran into, another comic guy, had told me, I was unaware, I had been shadow banned from a venue in town. Nobody ever told me, but I went there. I had a rough set. Somebody in the audience screamed out at me. And apparently the people in there had a little huddle and said, Jesse Dram doesn't get up here anymore. And he told me this, and I wasn't upset at all, because unlike a lot of other people I would argue with, these aren't people I like. These aren't people I find funny. I'm not putting them up on a stage anytime. So if they don't find me fucking funny, if anything, that's kind of a good thing for me.
I have a guess of what that might be, but like, I don't want if you're not trying to dox a mic, but like, what town is it in? Oh,
it's in Philly. It's one of the popular ones.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a place that has, what were you saying?
I would ignore it. I would act like I've never even just go there. I'm not gonna listen. You're not gonna stop me. You're not gonna stop me from doing comedy anywhere. Like I might not go somewhere because I just don't want to be around shitty, shady people. Mm-hmm. But shitty, shady people don't tend to run a good open mic.
Exactly. Yeah. Like, that's the thing for me. I'm there to fucking perform. I'll make friends with the people I want to make friends with. That's it. I don't need to be here to fucking kowtow to anybody. I'm here to show up, get my shit in, and go home, basically. Yeah. Yeah. All right. You know what? We're getting close to wrapping up here. Let me get your opinion of just like, what is your opinion? All right. Well, here's the thing. What are some like masculine role models you had growing up? Who were dudes you looked up to and you wanted to like ascribe to be one day or have some characteristics of?
Bugs Bunny and Batman. I'm not even joking, Jesse.
I know you're not. Well, I mean,
I was a little bit of a latchkey kid, and I was raised by a single mother, so a lot of my role, and I grew up in the hood. I grew up in an environment where there weren't a lot of people to look up to in my immediate environment. I mean, my dad is a cool ass dude if you break him down, but if you factor out the fact that he is also a father, and like sick athlete, alpha male, used to be clever and smart, gave that up for alcohol, but he was just the man in a lot of areas, but he wasn't present enough in my life where he was my role model. And thank God, because, I probably would have adopted some of his alcoholic traits, through absorbing it through osmosis. But Yeah, man, Bugs Bunny, with the way that like he just doesn't get rattled. He just keeps finding funny, clever ways to handle a situation. Like he's not deflecting, but he's not allowing things to penetrate. You know what I mean? Like he's not he won't accept any bad predicament. You know, he's always working an angle. He's always trying to get out. And then Batman is just like one of these dudes where you see him fail constantly. You see him have to build himself back up. And he's not a superhero that has powers per se. You know, being a billionaire is for sure a fucking superpower. But other than that, like he's trying to make the right decisions while also dealing with his own humanity and his own shortcomings and his own anger and his own spite and his own thirst for revenge. I mean, there's just always a lot of humanity going on with the Batman Bruce Wayne situation. So I always liked that, you know, it wasn't easy for him, you know. And because that's what I felt like my life was. I felt like, you know, coming up in a chaotic environment, the shit, like, when I was like fortunate enough to get good at things at an early age. So I was already privy to the fact that like the easier something looks, the more hard work that person is putting into it. So when I finally first met decent people and felt what it was like to be around decent people, it was like, holy fuck, they must be working so hard at this.
Yeah, that's something that's something that a lot of people don't consider. That like when you meet somebody who's just like, well, not only just decent, but if you meet somebody who's like exceptional or just a really good person, like there is something that just automatically like magnetic about them. Like I fucking like this dude. Like I want to be like this. I want what he has. Yeah, until they find out how much hard work it is. You know? I had that happen happened to me in track. You know, like, you know, my wife is a very successful grappler, and I see that like people ask like what makes her so good. I explain, and they're like, well, what else does she do? You know what I mean? It's and the same thing with comedy. People ask like what do I do? Like how am I able to do what I do in comedy? And I'm like, well, this is what I do, you know? And as soon as, dude, they'll check out after I say, because y'all say record every set, and their chest puffs up like, yeah, I already do that. And then when you're done, listen to every set, right? And if you have a hard time listening to your voice, that's because you're not being entertaining. You should be so entertaining in that audio clip that even you will listen to it. And if that's not the case, you got a lot of work to do. And the only way you can close that gap is by hearing the recordings or watching the video and seeing the disparity between what is happening and what you see and how much you're cringing to the level where you're not cringing, right? So it's like just that alone, people are like, oh, what else do you do? Yeah, well, not only that, I would say there's also a very big, you know, everybody goes on stage picturing the perfect set in their mind. And you really need to be aware of the discrepancy between the set I was picturing versus the set I actually performed. I mean, you also have to get that out of your mind. You have to start, listen, people that walk on stage with this idea of this picture perfect set that they want to have, they're being selfish. It's about them. And it's not about you. You're learning how to do a craft that is literally about the people you're doing it for. So it's really important for you to go up there with the mindset that you were doing this for these people. I mean, keep in mind, like the effort it takes to even be at a comedy show. It's an awkward thing, you know, being at a comedy show as a spectator. It's you know, a person talking at you. They can talk about me at any moment. There's a lot of discomfort that comes with that. Not only that, you have people that probably have babysitters for that night, or people are, you know, maybe they had some work thing due and they just needed to come out for a night to decompress so they can get back into the thick of things and like get that fucking project done. And you are who they're doing that with right now. You know, I think there's like an obligation to the people that a lot of comedians don't have, because they have this idea of like, oh, I'm going to write this perfect joke and I'm going to be seen as a genius. It's like, nah, man, you're a fucking fool. Go up there and be your version of a fool for these people so that they can laugh and go home
feeling better when they leave than when they came in because of how hard you worked to make them feel that way.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah, man. All right. Only got like 2 more questions for you here. I'm curious. So what do you define as like what to you makes a man? What are things that a man does? Like what I'm very curious of like the Sidney Gantt rules to masculinity.
Being of service to others. That's huge for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's just like, you can never feel, you know, you don't want to ever be in a situation where you feel better than other people, because then that takes you out of humanity and that makes you judge people, right? So you got to be of service to people and accept that some of the people that you're going to be of service for might not even care for you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if you set a vision for yourself, you work to achieve that goal, right? And you don't allow yourself to make excuses for yourself or feel sorry for yourself. Man, I remember one time I was in college and I was kind of like feeling a little depressed. I was about to drop out of college, and it wasn't even because academics were hard. It was just like, really, you know, I was, again, like, I don't even know how to explain this to you, man, but I was chasing pussy at like a pathological level, right? Where it was starting to like have a debilitating effect in my life. And the strain of that was making me, and school and track, it was just like, this is all too much. I need to get the fuck away from this. And I had a girlfriend at the time who is now my wife. And she said to me, she was like, you need to stop feeling sorry for yourself. And hearing that from another person was like, fuck. Yeah, I rattled my cage pretty hard. I was, I was probably like 21, 22, and it was just like, fuck, you're right. You know, like I am not working towards the ideal I set for myself right now. And I'm feeling sorry for myself because of it, because of how far I am straying from that. And now I feel sorry for myself. So, yeah, man, just being honest, with yourself. And I mean, that's really, I mean, I don't know, man. I think manhood is super important, but I honestly couldn't even tell you what I think it is. But I think it does involve, to me, what makes me feel good about the way that I live my life is the fact that I am of service to others, and that I don't put others before me in a way that it is a detriment to my family, but even within my family, like, in order for, I live for Ansley, my wife, to be able to, have this job that she likes and she loves, be the mother she wants to be, and also train jujitsu hard enough so that she can go into a competition as difficult as Pan's and win that tournament, like beating multiple women throughout the day. And I live for her, and she lives for me. It's easier to live for somebody else than it is to live for you. Like, she is going out of her way to make sure that I can do all these podcasts that I do when I'm guesting and travel on the road to do stand-up comedy. She does the podcast Two Jack Bros with me. Like, she puts me first, I put her first, and we both get what we want. And that's it is the way. You know what I mean? Like, if you put, I'm telling you, man, if your focus is on making sure this crowd feels great, whether you agree with them or not, whether they're fucking bottom of the hill people or not, you are going to change their fucking night. That is your goal, to make them feel good. You don't give a shit about comedy politics. It just doesn't, it's just so far from your radar, because what you have becomes so, that relationship becomes so important. Because if I give myself to them and they have a good time, I am now rewarded by their laughter. So I'm still going home with something, but it's because I gave something to them. And that's like, I just can't tell you how important that is in my life.
Shit, dude, that's a great outlook, and it's something I definitely want. Not that it's ever not in my mind about like, you know, giving the crowd a good time, but I think I think I'm gonna try approaching some things with that front of mind, see how that turns out. So I guess the last question I have here is, what's your opinion on? Well, I know this for a fact without getting into the person you had drama with, but some people who see some of these characteristics like very negatively. Again, as speaking within the context of 2000s, as we were talking about it, this is the time where the phrase toxic masculinity really became something in the zeitgeist. And people can argue, like, I know some people say, like, well, we're only talking the bad stuff, like, you know, fucking jumping people or date rape. But there are people who try to put anything that makes them even slightly uncomfortable into toxic masculinity. What do you think about that, particularly as it seems something that's become more prevalent in society to kind of like tear down the characteristics of what we might consider important to being a man?
Well, I think that is a sign of the fact that there are so many men not worth looking up to in the lives of people out there. You know, a lot of people have pussy scared men in their lives, and pussy scared men do erratic, crazy shit, right? And you know, you can't pretend to be a nice guy. I'm not afraid of anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not being nice because I'm afraid. I'm being nice to people and kind to people because I feel like that's the best thing to do, right? And if you're afraid and you're doing things out of fear, then you know the response to fear is like erratic behavior. You know what I mean? So it's like it just sucks. It just sucks. It's evident that like, oh, this chick, she didn't have her father in her life. You know what I mean? And oh, this dude had a father that was abusing him. You know, so of course they think masculinity is toxic. Like, how else are they going to judge it? The primary human in their life responsible for representing masculinity was toxic, right? So, you know, they don't realize what they're doing is they're extrapolating that trait to be all men, but I can't help that. I can't help that the confidence, the confidence that you see in me, which comes from, again, you know, possibly being able to handle myself in a situation, but also the fact that, like, you know, I'm out here to be of service to others, and that makes me feel good, you know. And there are a lot of people that are like posturing and pretending to be confident so people don't fuck with them because they're actually scared. And I can't help that in some visions of that, it looks the same, right? Like if you don't have your fucking life binoculars calibrated the right way, those two things can appear to be the same. So it's easy to paint me, you know, like people are accusing me of being misogynistic, you know, hating women. It's just like, dude, are you kidding me? Like, I completely live my life for the women in my life. What are you talking about? You know, it's like, but I'm also not gonna coddle you because you think my way of being means this. Like, I can't help that. And you know, it's just, and again, I don't want to say it's sad because, again, I don't want to pity anybody, but dude, it fucking sucks just seeing evidence of what pussy men can do to a.
Yeah, because that was particularly what I was thinking. Like when I think of like a real problem I'm having with a dude, pussy men, I think would be a problem with it. Like, I can't tell you how many people I've seen, like, you know, like, oh, so and so is like talking shit about somebody and then being surprised when like that person approaches it in any other way that's not also talking shit. Like, no, I'm not doing that. You're not going to fucking talk that way about me. And then all of a sudden, like, it's a whole big thing. I don't know. I don't want to get too into it, but you know.
Yeah, I ended up like scrapping with one of these comedians that was supporting a chick who clearly had toxic men in her life, where she was trying to portray me a certain way. And
dude, I completely forgot about that one. You and I have had beef with the same fucking person, I think. It only just clicked in my head. Yeah. That fucking lunatic.
I didn't really have beef with him. It was just that he started trying to challenge me to a fight when I was having an issue with a different chick, and he was escalating the situation, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But I needed him to realize how dangerous it was that he was trying to do that with me, because he was like pumped up on the adrenaline of like feeling like he was doing the right thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which by all means, do what you feel is the right thing, right? But at the same time, it's like, dude, you're sticking up for a treacherous human being. And in doing so, dude, this is a very, like, I could fucking destroy you, you know? And it was like, I just needed him to know what I could physically do to him.
I just sent you a chat message there. Am I right on who that was?
No, that wasn't the chick, but she was one of them. But
Okay.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that wasn't the chick he was sticking up for. Where do I type this?
You just type it right back.
Yeah.
So we're gonna pause the podcast, do a little gossiping here. So
yeah.
Yeah.
He was sticking up for her at Raven when she like tried to interrupt the set when I was going to be talking about some gay comedian that was slandering my name with the first chick that you mentioned. So it was like a trickle down beef. You know what I mean? It was
right. Everybody sticks their fucking noses in it.
Exactly. People who weren't involved, and it was just like, yeah, I just needed to let that dude know. It's like, yeah, I would fucking kill you. Don't threaten to fight me. You know, and it was I felt like I wanted to do it in a way where I didn't have to hurt him. You know, so but yeah. It's like that's what you end up with when there are no positive male role models in the world, or men aren't being, good men aren't being celebrated, and then you end up with somebody like Will Smith walking on stage to smack Chris Rock because Will Smith thinks that's a manly thing to do in that moment, because there's no positive male role model to aspire to anymore. Like, no man would do that.
Uncle Phil didn't rub off on him at all.
Not at all. Not at all. He had too much single mom in him, but he didn't even have a single mom, whatever. It's just like, dude, that was, I mean, that gets on to a whole bigger thing for me. And we definitely don't have time to get into that, but like, yeah, that was some bitch shit.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, hey, maybe next time I could hop on your thing and we can talk about it there. But I think, man, I think we're good. I think we can call this one a wrap. Remind us again where we can find you, what your podcast.
Man, Two Jack Bros is everywhere. iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, everywhere where you can find a podcast. Two Jack Bros is there. Definitely check it out. Again, it's a podcast that each comedian comes on, and because of the format, like, everybody gets the same questions, but because of the format, it gives each comedian a way to be of service to the listener in a really unique experience. We open up the chakras from the bottom chakra up, and each person that comes in here leaves way more enlightened than me. You know what I mean? It's because I'm not going through the process. I'm asking the questions, and it's it's a really neat experience. So definitely check it out.
All right, guys, you heard him. Check out Two Jack Bros. Look him up on social media. Find out when his gigs are. Go see him. Gonna end this like I end everyone. I'm gonna stop recording, but me and Sid are probably gonna talk a bit, but you can't listen. So see you later.